So Bitcoin's dead again.
Yeah, guess what? They all follow the daddy. When Bitcoin goes down by 20%, your shitcoin goes down by 40%. It's the law.
I was sitting at like 6 o'clock in the morning in the gym at -2 buying Bitcoin on a Wednesday.
No, I think it's all about the education, because that's how I see the podcast. It's education for me, listening to you guys and your views, but then, hopefully we're educating those that get to watch it as well.
So it's important to just try and actually just take some like 10, 20 pounds worth of Bitcoin and just transact with it. Like, even if you're just sending it to you and your wife, like just sending it from wallet to wallet, just test it and actually prove that it works. You know,
I'm not sending anything to it.
All I know is that you are the conservative person, the most conservative person that I know. So if you're not worried, I definitely don't need to be worried. Or downloaded an app called Bitcoin Lessons, presented by yours truly, eh?
The pod sponsored by Bitcoin Lessons.
Yeah, exactly.
Here he is in his Jordans.
Me. Am I coming through loud and clear? The classic mic check.
You are indeed.
Yeah, all good.
There we go. All good. All good. As always, I'm looking forward to this week. It's got a great agenda.
It's still crazy, isn't it? You know, when we first started talking about this, it's like, oh, should we do it monthly? It's probably that's build up enough material, but every week it's just bang. There's like so much happens in Bitcoin in 1 week. Like, there's no padding here. It's just all meat.
Yeah. 100%.
Talking about meat, how we're refusing to actually go to a non-meat restaurant.
Oh yes.
Or even an inferior meat restaurant.
Yeah. We
well,
deserve better.
Yeah. What's really worrying about that upstairs at the grill thing? Like, I actually clicked that Facebook link, and it's one of the only links that actually lets me read the comments without being logged in, because obviously I don't have an account. What worried me about that is it had so many comments from people going, "Can't wait for you to open." I'm like, too many people know about our restaurant. Like, it's just going to be so hard to get in once that place opens. And there's only one table we want. We want the private room, so it's going to be tough, I think, to get that.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll book it, but I do vote that we book something before then. No kind of pretend restaurants like Miller and Cart, because it's not the same kind of standard. But just something different. I don't know what though.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get into the big stuff. Did you see the first scandal? I'll show you some screenshots of this one, of the Blockfi little scandal that came out. This is the thing that kind of started the week, and was pretty big, because for anyone that doesn't know what Blockfi is, essentially it's a version of an exchange, but you can buy Bitcoin in there. But their main thing is they pay you interest, and it's quite a high level of interest. It's like, I think on Bitcoin it used to be 6 or 7% a year, which obviously in Bitcoin terms is like nothing. Like, who cares about 6%? Like, that's a daily fluctuation. But if you do, you actually get paid in Bitcoin. So the trade-off for that is they have custody of your Bitcoin. So to give someone custody of your Bitcoin in exchange for 6%, and I think that percent has gone down significantly over recent months. I think it's down to less than 1% now. It's just insane. So, but it's a very popular service. A lot of the big Bitcoin podcasts are sponsored by Blockfi. So there's a lot of noobs going in. And they made the fuck up of all fuck ups. And this is exactly why these types of services are so dangerous, and why giving someone your Bitcoin in exchange for 6% it could be catastrophic, because they made the mistake that instead of paying out in a stable coin, they actually accidentally paid it out in Bitcoin instead. So the screenshot that appeared on Reddit was this guy got sent 701 Bitcoin. It was supposed to be $701, like USDC, just a stable coin. So instead of sending them $700, they sent $700 Bitcoin, which is I think I don't even know how many millions that is, but it's a lot. And they did this to their, like, about 10% of their customer base got their payments in Bitcoin instead. So straight away, these users logged in and started withdrawing all this. And once BlockFi realized, they tried to shut down the accounts. They tried to block it. Obviously, they have the KYC on everyone. So these people that are withdrawing these huge amounts of Bitcoin into their private stacks, obviously you could just disappear, but they do know who you are. But they're still in the process of trying to recover all their Bitcoin. They reckon some people have already sent it back. But
I was reading there. Someone says they sent it back.
Yeah. And I think it's because it's fear. Because
that 701.4 Bitcoin, that is the equivalent of, what is it, 20 million?
And this is one account. That's one person. This isn't their total mistake. This is one guy screenshotting his phone, going, "Oh my god! Instead of being paid 700 quid of interest this month, I got 20 million."
I think in that situation, you should just put in your private stack and do one. They're not going to track you down to some hut in the middle of, like, the Philippines, are they?
Yeah, well, this is the thing, because this has happened. It happened in the banking sector as well. Like, people have had millions put in their bank accounts by accident, and then people have gone crazy and spent it. And it is a criminal offense to spend money that isn't yours, even if someone sends it to you. But yeah, when you give someone this amount of money, they could just disappear. And I think that the main thing that I take away that I always take from this is they could have made this mistake, and obviously they've made this mistake pretty big here. They could have made it even bigger and just sent their entire stack of Bitcoin out to their customers. Some people just take it and then run. Then for everyone else that's sat there waiting for their little 6%, in reality, there's no Bitcoin there now. So you've lost your entire collateral because the company messes up. You're trusting them not to get hacked or not to make a mistake, and all in exchange for a couple of percent more on your Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is so scarce that you just do not trust anyone else with it. It's so dangerous. And this is the type of honeypot. And it's weird that they've completely self-imploded here. It wasn't a hack, but mistakes happen. And it's not like the fiat system where they can just change the zeros and take it out of your bank account and put it back in the right place. Once people take this Bitcoin out and put it onto their ledgers, it's gone. There's no way of reversing that transaction. And yeah, it looks like they've dodged the bullet here a little bit, but it's just a nice little warning shot for everyone that thinks don't look for short-term gains on your Bitcoin. Just freaking hold it and look after it yourself.
Yeah, I would have got a flight out of there.
It's interesting you started off with this as the agenda point, because I guess it follows off the back of where we ended last podcast in terms of just making sure that you trust and verify. And the whole game of Bitcoin is trust as well. There's the miners doing the proof of work, and the trust is there, and you're in control, and therefore you have to trust yourself to write your 24 words down in terms of your seed phrase. If you're going to go out to a corporate organization like Blockfi and trust your Bitcoin with them, good luck to you.
Yeah. And it's one of those where people go, "Oh, the risk is very small." It's like, yeah, the risk is small, but if it does happen, the consequences is your life savings gone. Yeah. And there's no way of getting that back. There's no insurance company that can pay BlockFi the Bitcoin that they've lost back, because they can't get it. Like, it's gone. Like, this isn't the fiat system. So yeah, anyone that's thinking about doing BlockFi, just don't do it.
It's kind of even fits in with Funding Circle, because I know there's been a lot of people who've defaulted over Funding Circle over the last year because of the economic situation. So in a way it fits in. It's just Bitcoin, and because of wild fluctuations, you could end up with a lot more being lost, couldn't you?
100%.
It is just stupid.
It's interesting from a day-to-day perspective and our activities. We're actually trying to talk to BlockFi, and guess there's a reason why they're busy.
Yeah. Well, they seem to be very, very popular, because they're on just about every podcast that I listen to. They seem to come on at some point, and even the ones that they're not, they're trying, and they're just hardcore Bitcoiners that refuse to like allow a centralized service to advertise on their podcast. But they have a lot of money, and it seems to be working. I think the way it tends to work is traditional banking. So they essentially lend out your Bitcoin. So they're doing loans on one side and then storing your Bitcoin on another, essentially exactly like how the bank does, which is why they can pay out interest, because they're paying you, say, 3%, but they're loaning out your Bitcoin to someone else and charging them 8%. So they take the 5, they give you the 3. And but it's like one of those things. It's always a house of cards, because eventually either a load of people default and don't pay the loans back, or you get hacked, or a mistake happens. And it's like one of the 3 things, because as companies get bigger and as we saw banks got bigger, eventually they get greedy and they've got shareholders, and the 5% isn't enough. So they start, and essentially what people are always just know they're going to do is you start doing the fractional reserve thing. So instead of we own 10 Bitcoin, we loan out 10 Bitcoin. So it's at least it's 1-to-1. You start getting greedy and going, now we've got 10, but how about we loan out 20 or loan out 30? And you start now going, well, hold on, there's a 20 Bitcoin difference here. It's like, yeah, but everyone's good for it. Like they'll pay it back, and slowly but surely, like the house of cards builds, and then there's something happens in the world, a black swan will happen. Everyone defaults on their loans, and suddenly everyone goes, actually, we want our collateral back. And it's like, oh shit, not only do we not have your 10 Bitcoin, we lent it out like 3 times over. Like even the whole thing collapses. And that's what happened in 2008 with the financial crisis with the banks. And it's why we're just naturally wary, I think, of this stuff. And it's natural. It's quite good, I suppose, that the infrastructure like this is popping up around Bitcoin, because it does mean that more people get different financial services. But you just got to be so freaking careful. Just don't give away those keys, especially like don't be the guinea pig as well. As these services start popping up, don't be the first one in the door. Like this is because you're going to get wrecked. It's going to happen.
Even Blockfi, though, I mean, as you say, they're a large organization, but you are still the guinea pig. You are still the first ones that are going through this. So yeah, agreed. Don't do it. It reminds me actually of, I appreciate he's not here, Mark, once again, RIP Mark. So yeah, maybe we'll put that on the highlight reel. Is when we went out to, I think it was Amsterdam, and we went to go and see a client meeting. I stupidly enough thought that I'd booked onto the flight back home, and I didn't. And Ryanair, I think it was Ryanair, had oversubscribed. So there was me plus others that all got there thinking, okay, yeah, I've got my seat, because obviously I had a return ticket, but you needed to log in to get back. Anyway, there was about 10 of us that all were, well, there's no seat left because we've actually oversubscribed for dumbasses like you that we know won't log back in. So the plane's booked, can't sit on anywhere. So yeah, we'll get you a flight back. But it's interesting already that I think the model will slowly but surely creep in.
Yeah.
I just think that's ridiculous that you can oversubscribe an airplane.
Yeah.
I think that should be illegal. I just don't understand how
Yeah.
I know. Well, so I've seen it happen plenty of times, but I just don't understand how it's even remotely legal. You're selling what you don't have.
Well, this is the beauty of it, isn't it? Because you'd think that you doing it for like tangible goods, like seats on a plane and stuff, it all makes sense, and people are rightly outraged that they actually do this, but they actually do it with our money. This is the most, and it's completely accepted. Like everybody knows that the banks loan out 10, 20, 30, 40 times more money than they have in savings, and no one gives a shit, and it's just done. And it's always the thing, whenever you look at something and you realize it's a bit fucked and seems a little bit corrupt, you go, just take a look at the banks. They're doing it 100 times worse. Like everyone copies their model and goes, well, they're getting away with it. They're selling stuff they don't have. What's wrong with selling a couple of seats on a plane? Like, that's the least of people's worries. But we're gonna have to talk about it, aren't we? I think let's just move on to good old Elon. And I wanted to just get this tweet up there.
You got the screenshot. That's the one.
Yeah.
I love how we've evolved into dodgy paint screenshots. That's how the pod's come along, hasn't it?
I like it. I'm going to start doing some more myself, actually. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, well, you can do it. Yeah, it's just nice and easy. You can just share your screen and stuff. But I think where Elon's basically descended into over the last week is, calling Michael Saylor Giga Chad, which is obviously a dig. He's very clearly digging at him there. And then he goes from that. I literally, where's the other one? And then, Michael Saylor then is nice and calm with him, replies nicely, and then, he replies with yet another meme. It's not the bull market. You really are a genius, which again is digging at Saylor's profits that he's made in Bitcoin so far. And then it's just, and pretty much, I think my summary of that is where Elon's come from. He started with arguments, which was the energy, scaling, centralizing China. He's lost those arguments. So now he's just doing what everyone does in an argument, is that you go to personal insults. Start calling him Giga Chad, start posting memes. He's literally he's the classic troll on the internet where once you lose the argument, you don't admit you lost, you just attack the person now. And it's sad to see like Elon acting like this on a subject that he should be more informed about. And it's made $1.5 billion worth of investment on just company-wise. Like, it's just weird how he's attacking Saylor. I genuinely think actually he's a little bit jealous of Saylor, that he's like the respected billionaire in Bitcoin. And it's like, respect me. And we're just like, fuck you, Elon. And he's like, how dare you? I'm going to attack your like, I'll bring him down instead then.
But Twitter Bitcoin backed Giga Chad, didn't they? Let's see it. Let's be real. No one was really on Elon's side.
Yeah, we had this great little meme that came up. What did you do when Elon we ratioed his ass? Fucking legend. But and then it's extended today though, hasn't it? Literally, I can't even keep up with it. I tried to like do all the screenshots and get a bit of a storyline, but Elon's just freaking tweets too fast. So he's now, what seems to have happened out of that, even though Elon was just insulting Giga Chad, Michael Saylor has gone and organized a meeting with a load of the American miners and Elon to talk about creating a council to try and be more economically and environmentally friendly. And this has just caused outrage because, like, straight away, the problem that Saylor's walking into here is he's accepting that the FUD is real by acknowledging and almost apologizing and doing something about it. He's saying to Elon, oh, you were right about the environmental stuff. Bitcoin isn't environmentally friendly. Therefore, we do need this council. We're going to start talking about it more, which is pandering to Elon's FUD. It's also, whenever you hear about a council in Bitcoin or some society, some centralized thing, we get very, very worried because now are you going to be talking about Bitcoin behind closed doors? One of the mining companies that Michael Saylor has got to this meeting also has indicated that they would only mine regulated blocks within Bitcoin. So that all the transactions need to be KYC'd on both ends, otherwise they won't mine the block, which is terrifying because that suddenly then now means that Bitcoin can be censored and they will reject transactions literally. So yeah, Saylor, I think for the first time, he's walked into a hornet's nest here because he thinks he's helping. He thinks he's getting Elon over a hump and trying to get this energy thing, an environmental thing, moved to the side. But I think this is the first time he's had a backlash and Bitcoiners are going for the throat and going, how dare you, number one, legitimize the FUD, and number two, attempt to centralize and control Bitcoin. Just because you and Elon are billionaires, you got no more say in Bitcoin than anyone else. So how about you'll just fuck off? All you do is buy Bitcoin. You haven't built a business in Bitcoin. You don't mine it. You don't run your nodes. You didn't write a single line of code. You've literally, both of you have been here less than a year. Who are you to decide whether Bitcoin's environmentally friendly or not and starts calling meetings? Like, what the fuck? Like check yourself. Like he's overstepping the mark here.
Yeah, so we can make an assumption that it's upset you a little bit, Gaz.
Well, this is the thing, like we can't have heroes in Bitcoin. This is why I think it's so important that Satoshi was anonymous, because we don't really know Satoshi's views on a lot of things. And I think that helps. It helps build the myth because, as you've always said, like humans are fallible and we make mistakes. Saylor here has made a mistake. So it's going to be interesting to see how he handles it. If he, over the next couple of days, he just puts his hands up and goes, you know what? I probably fucked up a little bit there calling that meeting. I'm trying to be helpful. I'm trying to help Elon through it. And we'll probably go, you know what? Okay, fine. Just take a step back. Apologize and take a step back. But if he doesn't, if he doubles down on it like Elon has, then yeah, he will be cast out and he'll just be yet another fallen hero in Bitcoin. They don't tend to last long in Bitcoin. You tend to make a mistake and the plebs take over and they'll take you down. So we'll see how Saylor handles it. But
don't you think it's a good idea?
Yeah.
Because it's what's the big problem about Bitcoin? Oh, it's laundering money. Well, no, it's not. It's not any more than fiat. It's like tulips. Well, no, it's not, because it's not something which dies after about a month. It's used for drugs. Well, so's fiat, and fiat's used for a lot more drugs. Oh, it burns through energy because it's energy intensive. So I feel it's just legitimizing certain areas of it. And kind of like, I do look at it and think this is one of the, I suppose, hurdles to make it more mainstream, how to make people less wary about it. Because we had someone message into one of our groups saying, oh, I don't like Bitcoin, what do you make of it? I'm thinking about buying, what's it, Cardano? And he just got a torrent of abuse from me. So I was like, how can you buy a coin which is being designed by a founder of Ethereum? Like, Ethereum is one of the pieces of shit. What problem does it solve? And I had a quick Google on Cardano, and it's just a pile of absolute nonsense. Like, it was literally 5 lines of nonsense. I went, well, that's nonsense. I'm not going to get that time back, but I'm not going to read any more. And yeah, it's just, I think this energy is a bit of a hurdle for people because it's one of the big agendas around the world, with the whole pollution at the moment. Now we're trying to backtrack out of the lockdowns.
You're right. And people can jump on that bandwagon of energy consumption without knowing anything about money or Bitcoin and just think, oh, right, well, it's causing damage to the earth through the energy consumption to do this mining thing that they do, and then just turn off Bitcoin altogether. So, yeah, I don't think it's... I think he's done the right thing, and it's interesting that he tried to take the high road with Elon as well. Didn't respond back and stoop down to his level. Tried to do the meeting, and yeah, it's a shame that it's backfired on him.
As long as he doesn't start going to a council for controlling the direction of Bitcoin, I think trying to sort out the mining elements of the energy consumption, I do see the positives in it.
Yeah.
The problem is, though, like, there is no energy problem in Bitcoin. Like, it is already environmentally friendly.
That's fine, but they'll just do an audit and they'll prove it.
Yeah, and the problem is all this data is already available. What Michael Saylor should have done in this instance is had a Zoom call with Elon and brought on a couple of OG Bitcoiners to explain to Elon why Bitcoin is already environmentally friendly. By inviting a load of miners on and creating a council specifically targeted on making Bitcoin environmentally friendly, he is acknowledging there is a problem instead of explaining there is no problem. That's the angle that he missed. He took a slight misstep. He took the wrong turning. And now Elon is, we see how, like, why are we even like pandering? Why is he even bothering? Like, other than having a call with Elon, because like literally 7 minutes after Elon tweets that he had this meeting, he's shilling fucking Doge again. It's like this guy has no clue why Bitcoin's valuable, because he just literally 7 minutes. It took him 7 minutes in between a very big tweet about this meeting with the Bitcoin miners to then going, any Doge developers, give you ideas here. Like, he has he doesn't give a shit about centralization. He knows that Doge is centralized, doesn't think it's a problem. And the thing is, steps like this that Saylor and Elon are doing at the moment in Bitcoin, they're attempting to centralize Bitcoin, and that kills it. It's devastating.
I don't see how it's centralized unless I'm missing something here.
Well, if you get all the miners into a council and it actually starts to have influence, then you are slowly but surely centralizing it. So the thing that will happen is, like, people have tried to do this before. Like Roger Ver, Craig Wright, they've all tried to do this before. And what ended up happening is people forked them off. They went, you can make your changes, but we're going to fork Bitcoin over here. So if Elon comes in and starts to go, oh, we're only going to accept environmentally friendly miners, and that the blocks have to be like mined with using renewable energy, or they need to be regulated blocks. All what's going to happen is Michael Saylor and Elon are going to have their own chain of Bitcoin, and we will fork away, and the miners that agree will be left on an orphan chain that no one uses, just like Bcash, BSV, Bitcoin Gold, all those. And it's a very dangerous path.
I feel it's jumping to some conclusions though along that path, and I almost think that this is pre-planned. I think it's a little soap drama which Elon has planned, and possibly even Saylor, because we're making it sound like Elon thought it was an issue. We're making it out that Elon didn't know about the energy consumption. He did. And I feel like this is a lot more pre-planned than we realise at being plebs.
Right, so what's his end goal then?
I think his end goal is to legitimize it, to get public acceptance around it. I think Elon does get it, but he does what he does. Like, he's not an idiot. He's not going, oh, God, it takes massive amounts of energy. He knew. So he knew. He thinks several steps ahead. He isn't just thinking 1 or 2 steps ahead. So when he bought it, he knew. I think there's a lot more to this, and you won't see it play out for a lot longer.
Yeah, you could
just
be right.
Wait.
I did see someone tweet about this. Could be, even if it's not Bitcoin related, it could just be energy related, because obviously Elon is Mr. Energy. He's trying to create sustainable energy for the globe. So just shining a light on Bitcoin and energy, he doesn't have any intention of fixing it. He just maybe is just trying to get more worldwide attention on renewable energy per se, and that is marketing for Tesla. So
yeah, it could be. Like I said, he thinks several steps ahead. We probably only think 2 or 3 steps ahead, and people think you're clever for doing that. Whereas he's playing 4D chess.
I know. The thing that's confusing is the fact that he's just all this Doge stuff. Like, it's just, and the fact that
he finds it hilarious.
Maybe that's part of the plan. Like the whole, well, you guys are so stupid, you've bought into a shitcoin, and I'm playing you on that side, and then I'm actually playing you on the renewable energy side as well. And by the way, I've been buying the real thing of Bitcoin in the background.
Well, look at what his actions are. He's buying Bitcoin. He's got part of his treasury for Tesla in that. Has he got part of his treasury in Dogecoin or Ethereum, or could?
Oh yeah, there you go. We're back on.
I've got no idea what I was talking about now. I was on a little rant, and you stopped my flow.
About the 4D chest and Elon potentially playing the card off.
Yeah. So look at what he's actually got. So what do we know about what he's invested in? He's got some Bitcoin because he hasn't denied it. He's got Dogecoin because he's a billionaire. He can afford to anyway. He thinks it's hilarious. He likes the memes. We know what he's like. And Tesla has part of their treasury in Bitcoin. So look at what he's doing, not what he's saying. Because what he's saying is, he basically got Elon's IQ, everyone else's. So let's just think about that. He's just so far ahead. He's running circles around with us while he's running at 50%. The other 50%'s him trolling on Twitter, and God knows what else he's doing some great paint jobs and making memes.
I know.
But I think give it a year, and I think you'll probably find out what on earth he's up to. Maybe it is just reinventing currency and pushing it away from America, and Dogecoin is silver, everyday spending money, and Bitcoin's your gold. Maybe that is what he's doing. So you don't want to spend your Bitcoin, you want to spend something crappy like Doge, which isn't as energy intensive for the little transactions of buying your Snickers or whatever else you're going to buy.
Well, the thing is, if he looked into Bitcoin a bit better, he'd know that's Lightning. Like we've already got the less secure instant payment.
But it doesn't have a dog meme. You're not selling it to Elon, are you?
But the problem is, but the good thing is with Lightning is it uses sats, which is sound money that won't hyperinflate and be worthless. So the play money that you're using to buy stickers and your cup of coffee, you can keep that in your wallet forever. Like if you keep a few Dogecoin in your wallet, you haven't got a clue if that can afford or still pay for a cup of coffee tomorrow. They might have 10x the supply. It's just
it's standard inflation, isn't it? You know, the whole premise behind it is that it's inflation of 5% at the start, and it slowly degrades over the years because it's still producing a set amount of cards. Coins every year.
It doesn't matter what the code says today. There's 3 developers that look after it. They can change that. They can change the rules tomorrow. They may have already changed the rules. The thing is, because it's like a centralized coin, you can't really even look at the code. It's the problem with all the shit coins. Like, it doesn't even matter how they pitch it around. Oh, it's deflationary. It's more sound. It's ultrasound money, and Bitcoin's only sound money. It's a load of bollocks because they can change it. If someone puts a gun, and that's exactly what's happening at the moment. Elon isn't putting a gun to their heads. He's basically dangling a load of money and going, change Doge, and you receive some of this, and they're doing it. So this bullshit about how much the inflation is and all that kind of stuff, it's all that can get changed in a minute. Just someone updates the code, presses enter, and it's changed. If Elon comes in and goes, you know what, I don't think it's really fair that I'm doing all this work, I want 10% of the supply, they can just go, don't worry, Elon, we'll inflate the supply by 10% and just put it in this wallet for you. He can do all those things. He can't do that in Bitcoin, and I think that pisses him off.
Yeah.
I think we'll just have to wait to find out what the hell he's up to. Like, I'm thinking that potentially it isn't all bad, and there's a lot more to this. Maybe it is to do with his own businesses with the renewable energy, but maybe it is something about shining a better, clearer light on Bitcoin. Some masses will accept it. It's just wiping away those smears, you know. Oh, it's for money launderers. Well, no, it's not. Fiat's been involved much more than that. It's confusing. It's an investment. I think we got this in a different one about when I was looking into the dip and so on, people saying, oh, it's a risk, blah, blah, blah. And it's just slowly wiping away that as it becomes more stable over the years. But time will tell on this one. And I'm fairly confident that we will find out a lot more.
We give Elon so much credit for being so smart. So I don't think that it would take him too long to sit down and read the Bitcoin standard, read layered money, read or listen to the sovereign individual. There's so much content that's out there these days, and I'm sure accessible to him. So to get Bitcoin, again, it's taken me a very long time to get Bitcoin, but I'm sure it won't take him that long. And all the resources are available. You know, he's got access to Michael Saylor, and Michael Saylor will literally, I'm sure, give him the blueprint of, this is what me and my team went through in order to understand it. We've condensed it down even further because there's probably some stuff in there that we didn't need to read. Satoshi's white paper, that's not long, 8 pages. Go and read that. And then all of this, and then surely Elon can get an understanding of why Bitcoin is sound money and the right thing, and kind of jump off this whole Doge bandwagon.
Yeah. I think he does get it. I think there's just distractions and God knows what else he's up to. Yeah. Maybe he's pissing around. Maybe he does believe that Doge there is room for a secondary coin.
The beautiful thing is that everyone... The beautiful thing is everyone here got Bitcoin before Elon. We all bought it before him, and we were hounding Elon for years about Bitcoin, and a couple of times he was asked about it, and he's dismissed it. So I think part of why he's throwing his toys out the pram at the moment is it took him 12 years to get it, and he's brought in at a very high price, or with the highest, around the 30,000. That's his average buy price, and he has watched that go from $1 to 30,000, and I still think he's a little bit bitter about that. And I honestly do think, as much as a genius, he's still a human being. He has emotions. He's a little bit of a Donald Trump character, personally. I think once you put the phone in his hand and he can tweet, he tweets whatever's on the top of his head sometimes, and I think he's doing that. And I think once he started going in personal on Saylor, that's when I kind of realized, it's like, you know what, this is just an ego talking now. He's just being petulant, and he's literally just like a pleb, and he's not using a lot of his intellect right now. I think he's just annoyed, and he's just memeing. So But yeah, we'll see how it plays out. At the end of the day, he said he's not selling his Bitcoin, so I think that's always the true test, isn't it? Like, watch what people do with their money. He's put a shit ton of money into Bitcoin. He's put a shit ton of money into Doge. He's probably 70% down on
Has he put any money into Doge?
Yeah. He said he has, and he hasn't disclosed how much. No one knows how much he's put in personally into Bitcoin or into Doge.
It's probably like 10 grand into Doge, which is literally nothing for him. That's literally like you dropping £1.
If it is 10K, but I think he was responsible for quite a lot of that pump because it's such an illiquid market. When Doge just started flying up, I got a feeling quite a lot of that flying up was Elon money. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's put 10, 20, 100 million in.
It was all the plebs. The amount of people who have spoken to me about Doge, like, there's a lot of plebs because he's been tweeting about, so I'm buying Doge. And I was like, what the fuck are you buying Doge? Why are you buying it? Oh, it's going to go up. I'm like, it's crap. When people realize what it is, it just gets sold. And when the big holders see everyone buying in, they're just going to sell. And then you're left with the ruins.
Yeah. But they just see the fact that it's not hit $1, and obviously the value of what Bitcoin is at, and it doesn't need to even get to 30,000 off Bitcoin for them to make money. And it's the classic get rich quick scheme, isn't it? And the human intellect or lack of intellect to want to think, oh, okay, this is one of those. And all of a sudden, all their senses just disappear, regardless of the fact that it's a shit coin or it's a scam. We still fall for it. And I don't use we when I say we all fall for it.
Yeah. And
we've all kind of put, punt investments on various things where someone said, oh, Thingy, who I know Thingy, who knows Thingy, says this is going to fly. We've all put 100 quid on something. So we've never done it massive, but people will. They'll put literally their whole life savings, a flat deposit, 10, 15 grand, in something which I know nothing about because someone says it's going to pump.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the good thing about this whole shitcoin and Doge and Elon is every time Elon used to tweet, Doge would pump 20, 30%. And it was getting a little bit ridiculous because and I think ultimately now everyone that had spare money that can be influenced into buying something because Elon tweets about it, all the money's done because every time he tweets about it now, Doge doesn't move. It's down about 70% on its all-time high. And every time he tweets about it now, he tweeted about it today, Doge barely moves. It's just moving with the market now. It used to be uncorrelated. So Doge was just flying up. Bitcoin might have a down day. Doge was up 30, 40% in that day. It was very the money is definitely flowing into Doge in a much higher than it should be. Now, Doge has just merged in with the shit coins. When Bitcoin goes down 10%, Doge goes down 20. When Bitcoin goes up 10%, Doge will go up 2. It's just blended into the shit coin world now. And so I think Elon has lost his shine now. Everyone that wants to buy Doge because Elon likes it, they've already bought it. There's no more dumb money. It's like with any Ponzi scheme to a certain extent, there's only a certain amount of dumb money, and eventually you run out, and then the whole Ponzi collapses.
I think you underestimate the public. There's a lot more dumb money. There's always idiots. There's always a plentiful supply. It's like a conveyor belt. They'll come. They'll put their money into this. It's just going to be the next thing by the time which the next batch load come along.
Yeah. How do you guys feel about Elon's, and I know we spoke about it offline, Elon's influence on the market, not just for Doge, but on Bitcoin as well. And the fact that history tells us no one likes when one individual has so much power, especially over $1 trillion market.
I think that he was seen as some kind of god because he's gone along this massive line of achievements of these various tech companies, going into electric cars when they should have failed, going to SpaceX, taking out government contracts, and he's gone, I'm doing Bitcoin. Everyone's just like, oh, Elon could do no wrong. And then he comes along and says, energy, it's bad. And Bitcoin goes flying down. And I feel that when it gets properly disproven, he loses a lot of credibility. But the way in which it's being played at the moment, like a soap drama, is potentially that he's going to retain that credibility. But if he does something again, it'll be like the boy who's cried wolf, and I think he will actually lose his credibility no matter how he tries to play out the next step. So I just think he has got this kind of God status. You know, he is. So I think I sent a meme into the group. He is basically the Kim Kardashian for nerds.
Yeah, I think it is worrying. I must admit, I did think Bitcoin had grown to a size that someone like Elon couldn't pump it as much as he did, and then ultimately dumped it. But I think in reality, it isn't just Elon. This, I think the reason why we pumped so big was not just Elon. It was Tesla buying 1.5 billion, and that is such a big sign. And when you when you zoom out a little bit, what that symbolized is one of the largest companies in the world hedging their treasury into Bitcoin. And that just sent a message right across the corporate world that, holy shit, this is actually a good store of value. Maybe we should put our treasuries in as well. And we went from 30,000 to 65 in like 6 weeks or something crazy. And then weirdly, the reason we dumped back down to 30,000 isn't because Tesla then decided, oh, Bitcoin isn't a good store of value and we're going to sell it from our treasury and go back to dollars. They just did this weird, like, oh, we're not going to accept Bitcoin for cars now because we think it needs to be more environmentally friendly, which accepting Bitcoin for cars was never the reason why it pumped, because we know that people aren't really going to spend their Bitcoin on buying cars anyway just yet. It's dumb to spend your Bitcoin, spend your fiat.
So dumb.
So it'll be spend it on Starbucks.
Yeah, so it's weird. So I think it was just it is worrying, undoubtedly, that we pumped 100% off essentially off Tesla news, and then we dumped that 100% all the way back off again, based on Elon bringing up all this energy FUD. So it is worrying. But the good thing is, like, Bitcoin isn't its price, so we can't really control buyers and sellers. I think what also was mixed in to the dump as well that we shouldn't forget is the China ban. So China, like, for the fight, I think every year China bans Bitcoin. It's just I don't know how many times they can ban it. I don't even get it. But what that did mean, and we can see it on the blockchain, is there was a load of miners that have held on to Bitcoin for years and years and years, but they dumped it, and these were the Chinese miners. So they panicked once Bitcoin became illegal in China. They offloaded it. They offloaded it into yen. So just as all this Elon FUD is coming out, China bans Bitcoin, a load of miners shit themselves and dump a load of Bitcoin on the market. So it was just bad timing, and it just and then we hit into all the traders. They're all highly leveraged. They've all got their stop losses in, and it just went bum. And so it wasn't just Elon this one. It was also the China banning it again.
It's kind of flowed quite nicely onto the 60% dip and bounce, which we've marked out as another subject. So I was having a read about this, and there's a couple of things around the world. There's the India crackdown. So this is around regulation. So they're uncomfortable with the speculative nature of crypto. It is also concerned about possible ties with money laundering. So we've got China, we've got Elon, we've got India, and we've also got US investigation into Binance. So they want to know if people have been buying and selling derivatives. So basically betting on the value. Because I don't think that's actually legal around the market. So there's been a number of things which are it's almost been a perfect storm, almost like it's been coordinated in a way and driven the price quite down.
Yeah, I get you. Absolutely.
Yeah, I never buy into the whole coordinated attack thing. It happens all the time. It's just bad news. And the problem is Bitcoin, a lot of people come into Bitcoin and they are traders, and it's just bad. And so they bring a lot of liquidity to Bitcoin because they're buying and selling all the time. And when you want to buy it, it's normally just buying it off a trader who's trying to sell high and buy low, and they're gambling. But the problem is that when the price goes in one direction for too long, these traders will get overconfident and they start putting leverage on, and they start basically betting more and more that the price is going to continue on the action that it's going on. So when it's going up for ages, they start leveraging long. And when it's been going down in a bear market for ages, they start leveraging short. So then when some news comes out, just suddenly like all these traders get liquidated. And there was billions of dollars worth of traders got liquidated in minutes when the Elon tweet comes out, when the China banning comes out. I think, I saw the India one. I think America also said something about $10,000 transactions on the blockchain also need to be KYC'd, just as they do in the banking system. So it all just kind of came out, and then a load of traders get liquidated. And yeah, when we get these natural corrections, it happens all the time. And it's just, all we nearly need is, you just need a push. Once we've been going up, and we went from 30,000 to 60,000 far too quick. So we're right at the top of this mountain. You just need a shove. And once you get shoved, it's like, see you later. You're gone, and there's nothing to grab onto, because we went up like this. So you come down like that. If you go up slower, then when some bad news comes out, you just drop down a notch. But we went up 30,000 like that, just doubled the price. And there's just zero places to stop our fall. So we came all the way back down. It was a bit painful, but
so Bitcoin's dead again.
I love it, because I was thinking about, and I'm glad you used that phrase, because it's been used in a couple of things that I've seen. So Nas had this album called Hip Hop is Dead, and then there's been that phrase that grime is dead, and now Bitcoin is dead. It's not dead, but it is dead.
Bitcoin is basically Undertaker.
Yeah, you want it to be dead because the real people know it's not dead. But by it not being dead, it shakes out those that think it's dead. And I think where I was going to go and talk about is that every time it's dead, the media and the mainstream are obviously picking up on it more and more. And I think it's emphasizing the fact that it's dead when really it's nowhere near dead. And also China, I feel like, is like a parent disciplining Bitcoin each and every time, or trying to discipline Bitcoin. So right now, Bitcoin's 12 years old. And every year as it's gotten older, it's like their ban is actually, right, you're grounded. But really, the kid can get back out again. And it's grounded once again right now, but it's going to get out. And it's going to get bigger and older and stronger.
So question around that. So China have banned Bitcoin again. How many times have they banned Bitcoin? And how many times have they unbanned Bitcoin? So is it just a ban on top of the ban? Or is it a ban which is 2 weeks, like you're being kicked out of a pub or something? I mean, I don't really...
I honestly thought it was a joke. When I saw China had banned Bitcoin again, I honestly thought it was a joke. It's like they've already banned it. But I think this ban is more specific. So what they have done temporary bans before. And essentially the rationale for banning it before has been, we don't understand it, and we want to build the regulatory bodies around Bitcoin so we can get our house in order, and then we will legalize it again, and you can start using Bitcoin. But this ban specifically was on Bitcoin mining. They went, you can no longer mine Bitcoin. So you can still hold Bitcoin, you can still have a Bitcoin on an exchange, you still can own Bitcoin, but they banned the physical mining of Bitcoin, which is why we actually saw so much price action on this one, because that was the miners obviously are very big holders of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And suddenly their operation was made illegal. So they were dumping their assets because obviously they live in a dictatorial regime, and you do not want to break the law in China. So
what's the difference?
What do you mean? Compared
to the UK.
Yeah, exactly. It is quite funny, really, that we make that distinction. But in reality, they could make something illegal here, and the same thing would happen to you. I suppose you probably that slightly less scared of death here, whereas in China, they probably don't really hesitate to kill you. But
so we've had this over last year. We've just proven our true colours.
Yeah, actually, that's just on we slightly went to politics there. There was
God.
I just really liked this thing that just came across Bitcoin Twitter a little bit. Did you see the Belarus journalist that was flying? He's basically been an activist and has been very anti the Belarus government. It's a dictatorship. He's been writing articles and stuff. But he was getting a flight from somewhere. I can't remember where the flight was coming.
It's like Lithuania to Greece or something like that.
Yeah, but they went near Belarus airspace. So they diverted that plane. It looks like they created a fake bomb threat for the plane to give it an excuse to do a panic landing in Belarus. The second it landed, this journalist gets grabbed off the plane and is now in prison, very likely going to get killed in prison for being a traitor. And the only reason I bring it up is I liked how the British and the American media like covered this. It's very much pro the journalist and anti the dictatorship that seemingly has lied and created a random bomb threat to basically capture this journalist and now probably kill them. And but then it was only, I think it was about this time last year, that Julian Assange was grabbed out of the London embassy. What was it?
Ecuador.
The Ecuador embassy in London, and then is now on complete false charges, and is being in the process of being extradited to America, which they will either kill him or leave him in prison to die. But he is seen as a traitor and as a bad person, and all the media that I have read in the Western press is Julian Assange, bad man. He needs to be punished. Whereas this Belarus guy has essentially done the same thing. They're both whistleblowers, just writing information. One gets treated like a hero, one is a criminal. I just thought it was very interesting.
What did Assange expose things about the war crimes which America was committing and some of the black ops, if I remember correctly? So some of the really dodgy shit going on, which is Belarus. But he was trying to expose the president who has been fraudulently keeping himself in power. So there's not a lot of difference there. You're exactly right.
Yeah, but we know how it plays out on both courses, don't we?
Yeah, I think it just gives just yet another reason. If you didn't need another reason to distrust our media, because they are essentially our government mouthpieces. Because really, when you distill it down, these two guys, what separates them? Because they're both just whistleblowers. But one is a whistleblower on a government they don't give a shit about in Belarus. The other one is a whistleblower of the US government, which Britain and America obviously care about. So that they're shutting one guy down and they're letting one guy speak. It doesn't take a genius.
It's a government who has gone against what America wants. He's friends with Russia, and he didn't lock down. And what else he done? He's done a few other things, so he doesn't fit into the narrative of a good government. But we are kind of going down a politics rabbit hole now.
But no, it's just interesting just to dip into it, I think, because what should we talk about then? The
difficulty. So we kind of talked about the dip then, about China, India, Elon.
I was going to say, definitely still stay on the China dip.
Because I think we haven't talked about the fact it was 60%. I mean, we just need to say that. When we were here last week, we were talking about the dip, and we were well in the red, and we were quite happy about it. We carried on a long way down. I think we put however far we dipped that plus more. So what's the sentiment? Are we still good? I think we've already started to pump off the bottom now, but where were we a couple of days ago? Where was the sentiment?
We had a 20, but I think the 20 was a blip by Coinbase. I think the realistic one was about 23, if I remember correctly. So
is that the lowest?
Yeah, I think so. Give or take. I'd be interested to know there has been a bit of a low, because the 20 appears really out of kilter. It's just this really sharp down back up. For that 20, I think Mark pointed it out to us.
Yeah, well, that is how markets dip, though. That tops happen like that and bottoms happen like that. You get these big wicks because essentially there's a load of buy orders down at a price, and it seems to be it was around the $30,000 and £20,000. That was where the bottom was, and that's where a shit ton of people had millions and millions of pounds or dollars all just sat there waiting that if Bitcoin ever comes down to this price, we're having it all. We're having it all. And that's when the price went flying back up 20%. And because that's the thing, no one buys the bottom and no one sells the top, because they're nearly always wicks like this where they just last for a minute. And so I screenshotted this, and I think the reason why I'm just showing the screenshot really is, number one, this wasn't the bottom. This was just we were well on the way down. I just wanted to take it just to see these percentages. They were just freaking insanely large for a single day. But the thing that stands out is, whilst Bitcoin is 19% down for this day, Ethereum's 27. We've got BAT here 33, Litecoin 30, Bitcoin Cash 35, Bitcoin SV 40. So it's almost like every single shitcoin is down at least 10, sometimes 20% more than Bitcoin was. So the entire market moved. All these people that are saying these different shitcoins they're faster, they're better, they got smart contracts, you can decentralize NFTs on them and all this kind of bullshit. Yeah, guess what? They all follow the daddy. When Bitcoin goes down by 20%, your shitcoin goes down by 40%. It's the law. It's just...
It did upset me because I've got that through the Brave. That's what it's through. So I got my little stack sitting on the Brave browser, which I haven't taken out because I need it to get a bit bigger. But I didn't even think about that one because it's just my kind of like, yeah, because you're willing to look at the odd advert, we'll give you some money.
Yeah. I just think it's a classic, isn't it? When tides rise high or ships rise high. So everybody rides on that wave typically when Bitcoin is going up. But hey, you've got to come with us on the way down as well. And so I'm glad that they're getting wrecked. Question, do you look, Gaz? Do you look, Ross? Like, do you look at your portfolio and your stack and think, oh, it was up that, and then now it's like this? Like, I personally, I looked and then I was just like, yeah, and then just carried on with my day. But like,
yeah, I looked. I think I had a little bit of a wobble. I thought, oh God, what's going on? And I just thought, you know this,
yeah,
it's one of your, it's the asset aside from your company shares, which you know the most about. So it's not something which worries me. The wife did question it, saying, I don't want you to lose lots of money on this. But, I lost it all in a boating accident, so it doesn't really matter. But, it's, I think it's hard for her to understand because it's an asset which I've got faith in. I've done my research, I understand the flaws of fiat, and I understand the benefits of Bitcoin. So I kind of look at it and think, in the long term, this is a 5-year investment minimum. So like all the shares which I hold now, it's looking at a 5-year plan. It's not looking at 20 days, 30 days going, oh shit, it's pumped, I better sell it. Or, oh shit, it's bottoming, I better sell it so I can get some money out. It's looking, what's going to happen in 5 years' time? No doubt America are going to print off trillions of dollars. No doubt the UK are going to print off sterling as well. No doubt we're going to end up in another economic mess because it seems to be getting closer and closer to each other. So, I just kind of think that this is, it's sensible. I know it seems backwards to some people, but for me, it's just lining up perfectly. And this is just, a little dip.
Yeah, well, the good thing for me is that whenever I have a wobble, because the price, undoubtedly, everyone gets affected by price in some degree, especially when we have a sustained down, like 20% down days for like a week. It was tough, and like the price going from 65 to 30,000, that's tough. But the beautiful thing is, like, if this was any other type of investment, say I'm investing in Amazon or Tesla, then as much as I believed in those investments, I would be potentially shaken out, but then I would need to go, well, what am I going to invest in instead? And if I'm in stocks and shares, then I could just put it into a different stock that I thought had better potential. But when you've got Bitcoin, it's like, no, this is my sound money. This is for money for generations, and I don't want to give away my sats. And I could risk trying to get out now to then buy lower, but I've tried that in my early days and it always ended up wrong. And I'm not a trader, so I don't even pretend to be to read the chart. So the beautiful thing is I don't have anything to take it out of because I also already have the best asset I possibly could have is Satoshis. So when the price changes, that's always the thing that stops me. It's like, what am I going to put it into that is better? And it is this. But I know exactly what my net worth is at the top. I remember it to the pound when we were in 2017 and we came off the top, and that number was ingrained in the front of my fucking forehead for those 4 years of the bear market. Even though I didn't want them there, it was there. I could remember it. So every penny we were below that, there was a little like thing in my brain going, how much money I have lost off the top. And 2 weeks ago, well, we've like blown through that number. So that number kind of got etched away, and it's been constantly replaced with a new number as we've been going through 2021. And then the new number is there. I can see it in the front of my brain, and we are 60% below that number right now. And it hurts. It absolutely does hurt. Like, you've got confidence, but I think we just need to be honest. Like, it fucking hurts. And especially when you start talking about large amounts of money, not having that now is tough.
I think for me, like, we got dangerously close to my my average for how much I've bought, my sats for. So I was kind of going, oh God, this is almost into a loss, because I don't think I've had a proper loss. This has been my first proper dip. And Darnell will be very similar to me. Maybe has a slightly higher, because I think you bought a little bit later, whereas Gaz, you bought a lot earlier than us. So I'd imagine your average is significantly lower, because I know that ultimately yours is your fund, but it's still looking at it in profit and loss. Like your average would have been, quite low, because you, I suppose, became educated a lot earlier than us.
Oh yeah. No, it's never going to go anywhere near like into a loss, but it's so. The only time I ever figure out how much fiat went in to like figure out profit and loss is purely for taxes. All I look at is how many sats I've got and then what I can exchange those sats for. But it still hurts. And I think in reality, if you guys haven't been in the red yet significantly, then if anything, I think that's probably a bad sign, because it probably means that time is coming. No one gets into Bitcoin and goes straight into the green. Everyone has to be at least 30% underwater. So it looks like we're going lower.
I won't hear the end of it from my wife.
Well, that's when your metal gets tested. That's what everyone has to go through. You have to be sat there 30% down off your life savings, and you have to hold through. And that's what, when you come out the other side of that without selling, that gives you your HODL badge.
I think it was also a test. We had, what was it, 45 grand as a top or something like that.
Yeah.
And, that would have given me significant profit. And I was just like, no, because for me, I could just see so much more. I thought we're only just getting started at the moment. So I think there are two measures there. There's a record high, but then there's the potential drawbacks, like you said. But it'll be interesting if we do go below, because that's when I will be like, oh shit, I'm going to have to endure the abuse off a wife whilst I tell her to read the Bitcoin Standard or don't comment.
I think because I was in that bear market for such a long time, like the fact that we were at all-time highs for the brief period that it was, obviously we're not right now, it kind of didn't really sink in for me enough. Like it didn't really balance out. Like, yeah, I could hear everybody talking about Bitcoin once again, but to me, I was so ingrained to not looking at the stack, thinking, well, that was a waste of money, wasn't it? Like, I was so just like, oh, wow, this feels different. And I was not even getting used to it, but it was nice to think about it. And then,
is this from when you bought your original piece in, what was it, 2017?
Yeah, and then adding to it. And then obviously I bought a big stack around, looking at this, early February. And that was prior to Saylor having his little conference. As I said, I always thought once he has that conference, everything's going to change, and naturally it did.
And you see, I bought some 2017, but not a lot, and it just kind of.
I did buy a lot.
That was my, how would you say, speculation. I didn't understand it, didn't know anything, and it just sat there on its ledger for, what is it, 3 years, not doing anything. Yeah. And it's just like, we'll see what happens. Maybe it'll get big in the future. And then obviously I started reading about it. I went fully down the rabbit hole like you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And gave Gaz some Bitcoin friends in real life.
But yeah, just looking at my average, and my average is still 16 right now. So
16?
Yeah, 16.
I was going to say that's lower than mine.
Yeah. Obviously, if I could stack some right now, I'd be carrying on pretty well. But yeah, everything's tied up.
Yeah, that is the thing.
So I'm happy for it to carry on right now. Yeah, keep it going.
Because it's the thing to remember. We literally go back just 5 months.
Yeah,
like 16, but that was pricey. I mean, it only just pumped to that. I think we started the year around 10. Yeah. So the fact that we're at like 28, 30 at the moment, like that's just, it is still.
I'm just having a quick look. It seems to be about 20 at the turn of the year.
Yeah, that's right.
Pounds or dollars?
Sterling.
Yeah, sterling. So
accelerated from November. Because I was
right.
buying round October and November, and then like November started pumping my price up.
Yeah, late December or mid-December, I had a little buy price of 13,000, which was the lowest, but November it was 18, and then it went up to, at the time, which was high, of 26 in early Feb. And then I thought, oh gosh, I'm buying at the top here. And then clearly
I bought continuously at the top. I was
like,
sitting at like 6 o'clock in the morning in the gym at -2 buying Bitcoin.
Wow.
On a Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's like we always said, like everyone buys the top. No one gets into Bitcoin on dips, like on their big buys. When you finally get it, it normally part of getting it is the price is pumping and it just incentivizes you. Everyone buys all-time highs, like whatever the local all-time high is. Like I did it, you've all done it, but it's only the all-time high for a little bit. It always goes past it eventually, but yeah, I can almost guarantee no one came into Bitcoin with their big buy, their first ever big buy 2 days ago and bought the dip. No one did. Because if it finally, I genuinely think like if it clicks, but then the price is like 60% down in a week, I mean that almost unclicks it for you. You're just like, well, that seems like a horrible investment. Like you need the opposite. It needs to have pumped 100% in 2 weeks, and that almost just confirms your biases that this is a thing, and then you just YOLO in, and
it goes against the whole human nature, though, isn't it? Because what we've seen is in the nature of the business that we work in, everybody buys as it goes up. And really, you should be buying as it goes down. And so it just doesn't compute in the human mind that that's the way that this game works. You play the opposite way.
But you can't wait for a dip. So you can't, DCA it as you go along. Oh yeah, it's flying high, but obviously it'll dip at some point. I'll just DCA it. That's the standard, and then you just get bored of DCAing it and you throw in bigger chunks.
Yeah. Also, it depends on where you are with your thinking and with the whole DCAing, because DCAing is wise. However, you kind of need to get it. And then if you get it, and then you're on this like trajectory of the dip is now, then great. But it's very, very rare that you're DCAing and then you've also DCA'd and like a dip. It's like getting 2 aces at Vegas.
I think DCAing is also always the best strategy, but once you really do get it, you just don't want these pounds or dollars anymore. And and the problem is the dip you will probably end up buying is like a 3% dip. And then you'll YOLO in there, and then we'll dump 30% the day after. You're like, oh fuck! Everyone gets punished. It's just.
I think I bought a lot at relatively near the high as well, like somewhere about 38, and that was when I'd taken a day off to do various things around my house. I was listening to the Sovereign Individual, and basically it stopped me. I basically stopped. Went, I need to buy some more. I put a massive chunk in it. And then, it starts going up and down, and we're here. And I know that's basically put my average up quite significantly because I bought up there.
Yeah, it could be a lot higher.
Yeah. Do we want to move on to the difficulty adjustment? We've kind of been on the dip for quite a while.
Yeah.
Go on. What do you think? Do you know what it is?
I had a read about it. So from my understanding, it's that the difficulty is adjusted every, 2016 blocks based upon the time which it's spent on the previous 2016. So it should take 10 mins per block and roughly 2 weeks for 2016 blocks. So if that's out of kilter, it'll then adjust it. And the last adjustment I've got written down is 2017.
I know it adjusts all the time. But
I mean, this is probably a big adjustment, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So it's just written something just to.
And why? Why would the difficulty adjust in Bitcoin?
So this is, I'm guessing that when they're mining, but it's the algorithm, whether it's how easy it is, how long it takes for people to mine it. So it's actually so it's not just I suppose, really easy. There's actually some work which needs to be done in order to do it.
Yeah, the reason why I put this in there is because it came up briefly, and I only got it when I was listening back to the podcast when you said that mining will be slower when 35% of the miners disappeared in China because it got flooded. And I didn't quite catch it at the time. But the reason why you were technically correct there, because essentially, depending on how much hash power is in Bitcoin and how many miners are there, all Bitcoin is really is there's a massive long random number. And once someone finds what that number is, that mines the block. So all you have to do is guess the number. And it's so all the miners are doing is firing random numbers at the blockchain. Whoever gets the right number unlocks the block. You get the mining reward. You get your Bitcoin. Block gets stamped onto the blockchain. Another block becomes available, starts getting filled with transactions, and then you just have to guess the random number again. So, but depending on the hash power, depends on the length of the number and the difficulty of this number. So when 35% of the hashing power disappears, you are correct in the fact that that number is going to be a certain length, and it should take around 10 minutes for someone to guess the random number. But then 35% of the hash power disappears. Now that is going to take probably 30% longer to solve that problem. So every 2 weeks, the difficulty adjustment comes in and goes, how much hash power is here? Is it longer or shorter than 10 minutes? If the blocks are being mined quicker than 10 minutes, the difficulty will go up. If it's taking longer than 10 minutes to solve a block, the difficulty will come down. So it's basically just...
Yeah, makes sense. So with the China, sorry, me trying to understand this is that's within the 2 weeks, it starts to take a lot longer time. I mean, at the end of 2 weeks goes, it's too hard and it readjusts it. Yeah. I think it's an interesting point you raised off the back of it, because I think there are aspects which I don't fully comprehend. And I think it would be good for us to touch upon the basics every week, just one aspect. So maybe mining, maybe nodes, something like that, just going across these simple things, because I think we all understand the concept fairly well. But I think also if anyone actually watches this, it might be quite useful for them and me.
I think it's all about the education, because that's how I see the podcast. It's education for me, listening to you guys and your views, but then hopefully we're educating those that get to watch it as well.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think that there's little things like this that when you start digging in, you start to have these questions about Bitcoin. Like the more and more miners that come on board, like how do the blocks just not get solved in seconds? Because when Satoshi was mining back with the first couple of developers, there's like 3 miners all pointing at Bitcoin, but the blocks are still coming out every 10 minutes. So how has it happened that now there are millions of physical miners mining the blockchain? How are the blocks still coming out every 10 minutes? Like, what is it? Is it just a timing thing? But it's not. It's a mathematical problem, and you have to...
It is clever. I like the way which they do that, because he has dealt with, it's too hard, it's too easy, and he can readjust, and it's kind of thinking everything. And it's just, it is insane that he's managed to design this, or she.
Yeah, or they. But they literally have thought of everything, and the fact that it's so perfect.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because we've had some good topics in the previous weeks when we talked about Taproot and a little bit on Lightning. And I think Lightning I failed to understand for a while, whereas we talked about it, and I think I had some bits which I don't think I fully understood. So I think it is really good to revisit these kind of like topics, so we do actually fully understand and don't have any misunderstandings.
Yeah, we could just try and drop like one technical thing in, because there's so many little genius bits of Bitcoin, and you don't. It's really hard to find out, and then people do just sometimes you'll be listening to a podcast and they'll just drop in difficulty adjustment, and they'll just go on to the next bit. And if you're new to Bitcoin, that will just pass you by. And I think sometimes even Googling it doesn't quite make sense. You need to kind of like hash it out yourself with, this is just to keep the miners honest and to make sure blocks come out every 10 minutes. The difficulty.
So I would have read it originally, but I don't think it really sank in until you put it down as a topic.
Yeah. And I guess as well, moving forward as the future evolves, we know that the last blocks will be available in the year 2140. How will new miners be introduced to become a miner and continue on with the mining of Bitcoin?
It's a great question, because straight away the blocks do not stop coming out in 2140.
Okay.
The Bitcoin supply runs out at that point.
Yes.
So there's two parts of why you get incentivized to be a miner. There's the block reward, which is the newly minted Bitcoin. Then there's also the Bitcoin fees that are in the block as well. So Satoshi's theory is that the block reward starts off very high, which is why it was 50 Bitcoin per block back in 2009.
Yeah.
And then every 4 years we have the halvening. And so the block reward went from 50 to 25 to 12.5. And we're now, I think, where are we now? I think we're at 12.5 now. Or we're at 6.25 now.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so we should just had another one. So we're at 6.6, yeah. And eventually that goes to zero. So Satoshi's theory on this is the reason why the halvening can happen is, well, number one, there's a fixed supply. So you can't keep block rewards going on forever anyway. Otherwise, you'd have to have an inflating coin. So they have to go to zero. So he's decided to halve it every 4 years. The theory being the price of Bitcoin will go up in proportion to the halvening. So the miners will still be getting paid, even though the amount of Bitcoin they're getting is less. The value of that Bitcoin is going up faster than the halving is going down. So they're still incentivized to mine. And then by the time we get to 2140, the price of Bitcoin will be so incredibly high that the fees that will be in the blocks will be so incredibly valuable that will be an incentive enough to continue mining the blocks. You don't need to give block rewards anymore.
How are fees paid? Are those paid in fiat or Bitcoin?
In Bitcoin, yeah.
Sorry, I just wasn't 100% because obviously that's your charge for your transaction, say from wherever.
Yeah, this is why it's important actually to actually have a wallet, have your own node, and actually send a Bitcoin transaction. Because when you do that, you set how many Satoshis you are going to pay to send it. So all this stuff suddenly starts to make sense. Like you literally type it in. Like, how many sats do you want to send? And as you type it in, if you've got a good wallet, it will tell you, oh, the blocks are quite full at the moment. So if you put 20 sats in, it's going to get done in an hour. If you only put 3, it's going to take a day. If you put 200 sats in, we'll do it in 10 minutes. So yeah, you pay the miners with sats. You send your Bitcoin transaction. You send the fee separately, and the miners take all the fees plus their block reward. And at the moment, yeah, there's 6 Bitcoin in every single block. So that's a big incentive to grab that block.
Because I think I'm just trying to think where it had the charge from. Maybe it's Coinbase Pro, where you can set how fast you want it. Because I've definitely done that before.
That's right.
I don't think it's on standard Coinbase, from what I can remember.
Yeah, the problem doing it on an exchange is always like it doesn't feel real. So you're just sometimes you will be spending fiat on sending a Bitcoin transaction because that's what you kind of like the way they display it. It's the UI. But when you actually are doing it yourself on a wallet, then it feels more real because that wallet only has Bitcoin in it, and yeah, your transaction will go and you set the number of Satoshis. So I think it's important to just try and actually just take some like 10, 20 pounds worth of Bitcoin and just transact with it. Like even if you're just sending it to you and your wife, like just sending it from wallet to wallet, just test it and actually prove that it works. You know,
I'm not sending anything to.
Send it to me.
I was going to say send it to me, but Gaz beat me to it.
Well, Gaz is already trying to get my Bitcoin when I mysteriously die. To buy
I'll be
boat.
your Blockfi if you want, and I promise I'll send it you back if you send me some.
I've already got that boat on reserve.
We want to move on to the Super Cyle, I'm guessing is what you meant to type on that one. So truth or fiction. It doesn't this really fit in with a 60% dip and bounce almost?
I think it does. Because the Super Cyle is that's the theory that was going around at the moment. And this weirdly, the Super Cyle was being rumored in 2017 as well, where essentially it's leveraging the fact that hyper Bitcoinization is about to happen. So basically, we never have a dip again. you essentially just go straight up without a price discovery with Bitcoin. The super cycle essentially gets us, essentially you go in an S curve. So you start slow and then you just go straight up and then you lever out at the top. And then at the top is just the 2 to 5% fluctuations. So it was happening in 2017 where this is the super cycle. We go all the way to millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin and we stay up there. And yet again, and just as I think that was getting traction, we hit the bear market. And then in 2021, it started to happen again. People were rumored about the super cycle. Some people don't think it's off the table yet. Just because we've had a 60% correction, it doesn't really mean much. We can still keep going up and go to millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. And we're never going to have a bear market again. Never going to have this 80 to 90% correction. What do you guys think? You think this is a super cycle or going to millions of dollars for Bitcoin right now?
Not right now. Is my honest answer.
It's hard to tell because we are hitting an exceptional period for the world economy. You know, we're coming across events which we've never seen before, locking down the whole world, printing off trillions. I mean, what's the increase in dollars over the last year? You know, we know it's a minimum of 22%, but I don't know how many on top of that is. So we've seen increases which we've never seen before. There's lack of confidence in fiat, but I still think there's not enough people who've got Bitcoin for it to really go haywire, you know, hit a million or whatever. I think I can see it happening, but I think it's going to take a bit more. And I think this kind of then relates back to the Elon point, that this is maybe a bit of his way of making it mainstream by making it clean. Maybe this is what takes it to that next level.
Because I think one of the arguments is because companies are buying it now, they're less likely to have weak hands and sell it. But yeah, personally, I actually do think that I haven't been a believer in this super cycle at all right now. I think it was still super, super early. Like we've got 1 or 2 companies buying it. We need 498 of the top 500 companies to have it, not 2. And you know, like 1%, 2% of the population have Bitcoin, and there's still way too many shitcoins around.
Until WH Smith have got a stack.
Yeah, exactly.
Is that how you plan?
I think it's going to be any financial institution until they've got a sizable stack. And I think that's when you're going to really know, because we've had JP Morgan, the kind of CEO, saying whatever, it's a crock of shit. Because I think this came up in the Russell Brand bit. But then they're making investments out of it. What are they called? Completely forgotten what on earth the type of investments are. But there's things like that coming in. You know, they're offering products in the financial institutions, but they're not holding yet.
ETFs.
Yeah, that's it. I just covered the name. So I think that's going to be the biggest one when HSBC has a stack of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I personally think that the reason why the super cycle always comes around is because people get terrified about having a bear market and having an 87% correction again. And unfortunately, I believe that's going to happen. And people don't want to believe it. They think, no, we're in the super cycle now. We've got companies. And just as we've saw, there's plenty of reasons why people can sell. There's plenty of big holders that can sell their Bitcoin, which is why we had a 60% correction, largely off FUD from Elon and then a China banning. And we reversed 60%. So if you're going to tell me that if we hit anywhere near my prediction of 750K and you don't think we can come back down 85, 87% from that, then I think you fucking joke. Like you're just kidding yourself. Of course that can happen. And yeah, so unfortunately, I think we're probably at least like 2 or 3 halvings away from having a genuine super cycle. I think each time we level up, eventually there's no more dollars and pounds that we can take in. It's like because we've got them all. So that's the super cycle, but we're nowhere near that right now. At 1 trillion, we're still a joke in the financial market. I think once we get to 10 trillion and we're taking on gold, we start to become a little bit of a threat. But in reality, until you're 50, 100 trillion, now we're ready for a super cycle. And you very quickly go from 50 trillion to like 500 trillion, and overnight, and suddenly you've that 10x on that 10x. That's everything now. You went from having a lot to everything. And at the moment, 1 trillion, and we've gone back down to 500 billion. It's just the market that can be shoved around, and like 1 billionaire a tweet can knock half our value off. Like that's not super cycle worthy.
Yeah, I don't know why. Maybe it's just myself, but I was expecting this high and then this low, because that's what happened when it was at 1,000. That's what happened when it was at 20,000, and lo and behold, that's what happened when it hit recent all-time highs.
I was expecting a bit higher, personally. I was expecting. Yeah, I thought before we had a massive dip, I thought we'd get closer to 100,000. I thought that's when people would be aiming to sell their Bitcoin. Just intuition. Obviously, I was completely wrong.
You can nearly guarantee whatever your like personal sentiment is, that will probably be what most people are thinking, and then Bitcoin always does the opposite. Just catch it out, because that's the beautiful thing about this dip. Like, it's quite rare for us to. I think in every bull market we've had 2 or 3 corrections of like above 30%, but never gone above 40. I think like 40 is pretty much to be in the limit in a bull market. That's the size of the corrections. So, and I know, like, having been in Puerto Rico and being around a load of those crypto traders and the Bitcoin traders, they were young lads, and they used to just laugh about the cycles and be like, it's so easy. You just wait for a bull market, and then once the price in Bitcoin dips by about 10%, you know it's going another 10 or 20, but it won't go any further. And then so you just leverage short, and then once it hits about 30%, you start to leverage long, and then it pumps 100%. And essentially, you can take a very small amount of money and make it into a lot. And these guys had made millions doing it, and it was all based on the previous cycles of Bitcoin. And that's why I think this last correction has been so brutal, because
I was going to say
it broke all the rules. Like, it never once you're in a bull market and it's been confirmed, it never goes below a 40% correction. And it went smashed through that and went to 60. and that's undoubtedly there's going to be a load of traders out there that got caught out by that.
Yeah, 100%. Oh gosh, it just makes me feel sick just thinking about it, like trying it and it going wrong badly.
Yep.
Just looking at the markets right now. So Bitcoin, in rank of everything, is in the top 10 of like complete market caps. So you've got gold number 1, Apple number 2 at like just over 2 trillion, then followed by Microsoft, Saudi Aramco, Amazon, Google, Silver, Facebook, Tencent, and then Bitcoin. So we've got a long way to go still at saying 706 billion. So it's just gone below the trillion mark, obviously with recent dips. But it's definitely there. So the first victim could be when it overtakes silver at 1.5 trillion.
Yeah, that would be quite newsworthy, because in reality as well, like, gold isn't the final boss anyway. The final boss is the US dollar. So that's the big boy. So that's the chart there. That's like mid-level boss. Like, gold is like pretty much, gold's already beaten. Like, it's not all those kind of guys on that list. That's pretty much easy money. Like, that was, go back 5 years, gold was really like, wonder if we can get there. Now it's almost like we're getting there. It's a matter of time. But the big level boss is the US dollar. That is, well, you could add up all those companies and times it by 1,000, and that's the US dollar. So that's the big boy that we're going after now.
I love you talking game theory, by the way, because I just see it all as game theory. The psychology of it, the fact that when people get in, when they get out, why they sell, why they then think, okay, maybe I'll come back in, and the final boss of, Bitcoin versus the world is, yes, the US dollar, and cementing its place as sound money.
Yeah, I think there's quite a good list actually where it's got all the global currencies. I'm not sure where Bitcoin is at the moment.
Okay.
We can assume it's smashing down the Argentinian currency.
Yeah, I think last time I looked, I think Bitcoin was about 20th in global currencies already, because most of the currencies in the world are really like not worth very much. It's crazy how little they are worth. And then it's only like the yen, the euro, the pound, and the dollar. They're actually worth anything. Like Bitcoin's already higher than just about everything else.
It's interesting you mentioned this actually, because today I was on a call with the largest Japanese Bitcoin exchange called Bitflyer, and it made me think about Japan as a country and what they've gone through. I didn't have time because the call to really go in depth and kind of like watch my YouTube videos classically and really understand everything that's gone on there. But they had hyperinflation and have kind of come out of the other side of it. And something that I read was kind of like, yeah, the US will not be another Zimbabwe, but instead they will be another Japan. So I'm probably going to put that on next week's agenda and then come back to revisit that.
Yeah, sounds interesting. Yeah, because as I was strolling around YouTube, I stumbled across Russell Brand, and I'm subscribed to Russell Brand. I think he's all right. I quite like him being a bit of an outspoken guy, and he's got some interesting views on a couple of topics. He went a little bit too COVID heavy and supporting it early on, but he seems to have come out the other side now and is anti-lockdown and stuff. He's actually gone back to his roots, so he seems to be like starting to wise up a little bit again. And in the comments, I've always seen people going, "You need to do something on Bitcoin, Russell. Please do something on Bitcoin." And he's ignored it for years and years and years until, I mean, it was just like the back end of last week. He did his very first video on Bitcoin. Seems to be quite intrigued by it and wants to learn and wants to get Bitcoin experts on. So he's got a very, very large following. And I think it's just another, and he seems to be approaching it from like a sound place. He wasn't shilling it. It didn't seem like he was trying to promote his own coin or an NFT or anything weird. He did actually seem to be coming from it from like first principles of, is this sound money? And he was just asking the question. He's like, I don't know. Is it? I want to explore it. I'm going to do a whole series of videos on Bitcoin. This is my first one. So I want to learn together and let's see where we end up. Because he went, is it a Ponzi? Is it a get rich quick scheme? Or is it sound money? I don't know. And so I just thought it was interesting seeing like a very mainstream influencer kind of coming into the space and actually going, you know what, I can take this seriously now. I thought it was another thing kind of falling over and people just, falling into Bitcoin.
Okay.
It was funny. So I watched it and what was it? It was like a children's guide which he had to Bitcoin to explain it. And I think it missed one of the key points. Like he seemed to really like decentralization, but he didn't mention limited supply. That's one aspect which I think was really missing. Because I think, a lot of people think that Russell's just an absolute maniac who's a bit stupid, but he's incredibly clever. And he likes to play on misperception. And then if he is interviewing, because when he's over in the US, I think one of the news agencies took a particular disliking to him. I think it's Fox, and he used to love just taking them apart. Like he'd pretty much just try and get him to have him in an interview, and then he'd absolutely destroy them just for laughs. So, like, I made some notes on this, but he was on about he doesn't know very little. And then he's talking about how Bitcoin isn't backed, but he said, well, money isn't backed, it's backed by the gun, and that's it. So you're kind of going, he has a sound understanding of fiat. And he also starts talking about JP Morgan and the boss, and also the head of Bank of England, who are saying, well, these comments are meaningless. Like, you're working for a bank, you're not going to say, oh yeah, fiat is crap. Bitcoin's the best when all your assets are in fiat. So he's just going, how can you possibly take into account these comments? So it was an interesting look, but I think it needs to go a bit deeper. So I'll be quite interested to see if he gets, like an expert on with him, talks him through the points, and whether he does actually invest.
Yeah, do you have a chance to watch it, Darnell, or do you?
No, I haven't had a chance to watch it. I'm just actually going to message us or on LinkedIn. I just found this article right now because Deutsche Post have actually claimed that Bitcoin is the third largest world currency. But it does say the report comes with major caveats and omissions. So it'll be an interesting one that it
I've got
does
the
openly
same.
say.
I think I've got
Have
the
you
same
seen it?
chart, but it's from 15th to the 3rd.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
the values can be massively different. And from what I can see, it doesn't have Chinese
No.
yen. And then it's kind of got the currencies as it goes along. So it's got Bitcoin now, 2018, early 2020, 19, 17, and where it kind of sits next to the Turkish lira all the way up to the dollar.
I've got on the one that I've got right now. The Japanese yen is number 4, followed by the Indian rupee, and then so on as it goes further and further down.
What, and Bitcoin's sitting at number 3?
Yeah, but it's an interesting chart that they've got on it.
Okay.
Yeah, we can comment on it publicly on that one.
But it doesn't have a Chinese currency on there, does it?
On my one, it does. I've got one that is this article is saying that it was on the 19th of March 2021.
Okay. We'll have to add it to the agenda for next week, and we'll kind of have a proper topic on.
But it'd be interesting, yeah, exactly. Who knows where we'll be next week?
Yeah. Because then,
will we get Mark on?
Didn't you?
The global corporate tax, which I read. So I read this in some news articles, and I was like, that's a fucking stupid idea. So all it is America saying, let's have a global corporate tax. Well, what does that mean? No one has a competitive advantage over us. So you're kind of going, isn't this anti-business? Like you're literally just going, we don't want you to go to the Caribbean or where on earth this tax haven is. You're going to have to trade in somewhere at 15% minimum. So it kind of defeats the whole purpose of, I suppose, countries offering their services. So we talked about this when we were talking about the sovereign individual. I think Gaz talked through this where he said, well, as an individual, you can go anywhere and it's whoever offers you the best services. And in a way, it is that way for if you're a multinational company, that's what you do. You go to different countries and go, what are you going to offer to me? Yeah. I read some comments on LinkedIn where I caught the article again, people saying, well, you've got to pay the tax. But the question is, what is this company getting for that tax? But they got to pay tax. Well, but they're going to pay some tax, but what are they getting for 15 or whatever the US are doing, 22%? And I think it's a really interesting point. And I don't think anyone seems to really comprehend. Because once again, why are we paying tax? Because ultimately, most of it's going down a big black hole. We're getting stupid things thrown in which we didn't ask for, whereas there are some essential services which we did.
Yeah. Because I've got 2 main comments on this. I mean, number one, I think you hit the nail on the head with the competition thing. Like, why would America be leading this? It's like, well, they are the leading powerhouse of the world. So why do they suddenly want to flatten everyone's competitive advantage? It's because it keeps them at number one. Like that's the main reason. And it not only does it keep them at number one, but also there's a huge amount of tax that isn't in America that has left, and other countries are benefiting from it because they are still paying tax. All these companies that are supposedly pay no tax, what America means is they don't pay them tax, but they pay other countries tax.
They're paying like 5% or something and not 22%.
Exactly. And I think Biden at the moment wants to raise all these. So obviously they are fleeing, and there's many companies. They're fleeing within America. They're going from California and New York and ending up in Texas and Miami to avoid corporation and income tax. They literally, you can almost have tax havens within American borders, which is kind of hilarious. The fact that now not only can they not control tax inside their own borders, they want to control the entire world. So they're trying to keep their competitive advantage. What was my second point? The second point was the media side of it on how this is being reported. And it just, because when you mentioned it, I just Googled it and there's a couple of articles on it. The amount of positive spin on if people pay their taxes and company pay their taxes, like children are going to have their lives saved, and everything's going to be fine if this happens. And the media spin is they just love taxes. And again, it just brings me always back to the same point of the media just at least the main kind of corporate sites that you see, like the BBC and like CNBC and freaking Forbes and all the ones that freaking Google put to the top. Every single one, it's just an extension. It's a PR machine for the government. It's just promoting these policies. There's no critical thinking. There's nothing to suggest that raising taxes is a bad idea and this money could just get wasted and this is all about controlling companies and making America richer. No one's brave enough to write that article because fundamentally they're all paid some shape or form by the American government to exist, and hence they have to write pro articles whenever they come up with a new initiative, and it just stinks. It's like the third thing on our list that pretty much comes back to a US government funded media, and it's annoying.
Well, my other point about this is it's USA being lazy rather than actually being intuitive, because an intuitive approach to this would be, how can we account for every dollar taxed? And if you can account for every dollar, you look at minimizing waste. So it's kind of like looking at what's it called, like the lean process, because there's waste left, right, and centre. There's situations in hospitals where some wards are barely used, some are underutilized. So you've got, say, 2 doctors on there, whereas only need 1, and that other one could go to much more used ward. And there's things like on-site cars, which will have drivers on site as part of their job. Things like that is money is not being used efficiently. And I think that's what people are saying, we need to pay more tax, but you keep on paying more tax, you're going to end up with more waste. And you're going to end up with even higher percentage of waste, because you could probably say 50% of what we have now is waste. Is it a necessity? It's great. We should have an NHS. I like the NHS. We should have public transport, but a lot of that is just crap on top of it. And it's backing for people like, giving second homes to MPs. You've also got things like, gold wallpaper to Boris, but I think that was actually turned out to be from backers. So I just think get charging more taxes is a really false way to go. They should be looking at efficiencies if they are struggling for money.
Well, the thing to always remember with taxes is governments don't need the money. They have the printing machine. As we've seen this year, they can print infinite. So taxes are not about paying the government to do stuff. They already have infinite money. The only reason they want the tax is for control and to keep people and organizations poor. They don't want you to have the money. They don't need it. They pretty much just set fire to it the second they get it, because they can just print as much as they want. It's all about control. So when you see this with America and they want a corporate tax, what does that really mean when you dig into it a little bit? It means that every single company in the world needs to open up their balance sheet. They need to have a P&L, and they need to pay money to a government somewhere. And just that information of knowing where the money is, who's making what, is super valuable. And it's way more valuable than the money they would collect, because they can print, as we saw, they inflated the US dollar by 25% in 1 year. That's more taxes than they've ever collected in the history of America. So they don't need the money. It's all about control. And America wants to control the world. So that's why they want to have because guess who's going to be at the top of a global tax authority? It'll be some American official. Of course it will.
We need to bow to the East.
Yeah, I think it also goes back to a point that I had in mind but didn't raise earlier on around China and their control or lack of control when they keep on saying, oh, Bitcoin's banned. Because we know that some countries are mining Bitcoin so that should it become the reserve currency in the future, they come out as like going from 15th to 1st. And we all know that America haven't got their act together to actually understand Bitcoin and then mine Bitcoin. So maybe this is their play to, okay, we need to or want to try and stay as the world #1 superpower. But the whole we are banning Bitcoin in China, is that a double bluff? and instead they are continuing to mine it as a country, or wanting the miners to give them the Bitcoin. Therefore, again, they become the world's number one superpower, not only because of the Chinese yuan, but also they've already done CBDC as well, and then also through Bitcoin. So they got the triple header.
Sorry, did you say gold then as well?
Well, I know they've definitely
they've been lapping up gold for the last year.
They've been lapping up gold. They've got the central bank digital currency. They've got that on the go. Obviously, they could be. Don't know if they are also mining Bitcoin as a country and then trying.
It's not impossible.
Exactly.
I think it's a really good point, because China, they are thinking ahead. You look at how they've scaled from being, well, what is it, probably a middle of the road or poor country to being a superpower.
In the 80s, they were poor.
Yeah, and fighting with the US to be number one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think
fighting really well. 50 years later, 40 years later, they're winning.
I think it's only a matter of time before they come the top one, and it's with dirty tricks like the 15%, which is designed to keep China away. Yeah. So China doesn't have a competitive advantage or another country, so it all stays in America.
Yeah, the way I look at it is, China's been a country that's been around for over 5,000 years, as long as gold. The America is like that little toddler that's just come up out of the blue, with only being a couple 200, 300 years old. And so all of a sudden they're like, right, well, back down. Yeah, we've had a hard time of it and you've risen up really fast, but we want to be back on top. The Chinese dynasty was for a long time. And, I think China as a country, they're big strategists. So it wouldn't go against them, or it wouldn't surprise me if this was just a really long played out strategy.
It would be hilarious. Not because obviously China's getting in, which would still be horrendous, but because it's America and what they've been doing.
Oh,
the dirty tricks which they've been doing for the past I don't know how many years, and then saying how disgusting everyone else is.
Yeah.
So I would find it pretty hilarious. But you're right about the dynasties. I think you brought it up a few podcasts ago around the Chinese dynasties, the Roman.
Yeah.
I think Persian. The British Empire as well.
Empire.
They've all had their kind of run, and then they kind of dropped off. Like Britain's still in a slump. You've got, say, Persia, which is my understanding right, that'd be around Syria and some other countries at the moment.
I think so.
Still in a slump. China's come out of its sleep, and it's charging again. And it'll be the same with the US because they've become fat and lazy now, and they're going to hit a slump real soon.
And you have to hit rock bottom in order to then kind of readjust. Right, okay, fuck, we've messed up here, haven't we? We were number one. What are we then going to do to get back to our position? And then your mind becomes sharp and focused once again. And, Bitcoin is that equalizer for those other countries. We've heard about Iran mining Bitcoin, and Iran had been put on and slapped with so many sanctions, but hey, once again, you can't take our Bitcoin off us, and we can watch you print all your money, and then hey, we're back in the game. So I do think it could be a strategy.
Yeah, it is complacency. So I think that's been brought up on this podcast, maybe by yourself again, but people become fat, complacent, and drop off, and it's the hunger which gets you there. It's kind of like the struggle. When you're earlier in your life, you got that desire to get better, and China is in that place where it wants to be the number one, whereas America's sitting there, it's getting fat, and it's just going to get toppled over.
It's eating itself, isn't it? Through the way that they are conducting themselves, and looking at China as the poor cousin, because we'll ship all those jobs over to there, and we'll give you these IOUs, but in the meantime, they're stacking that gold and stacking perhaps Bitcoin. Maybe again one for us to look into.
Which I think it all comes back down to who has the money printer. Like whoever has the money printer, basically you never learn from your own mistakes. Yeah. So that's why these dynasties ultimately fail. They get there legitimately to a certain extent. Like quite often it's by force. So you can say it's still legitimate. They won the war, so they then take the spoils. But then they essentially own the money, and they own the supply of that money. So every time a government fails, instead of them failing and learning from their mistake, they just print their way out of it. And the learning is not done. The same people end up taking power. The same mistake keeps happening time and time again. Whereas if you live in a poor country where your money printer has nowhere near as much power, you actually fail. Like people actually go through hard times. You have recessions. People starve to death. Businesses fail. Health services fail. Millions of people die. So you learn from those mistakes because they're very, very real. And that's where China has learned from its mistakes. It's been in poverty for the last 50 years, and it has fine-tuned how it governs its country. And we obviously don't agree with how it governs its country, but it's undoubtedly working. And then when you look at how America is governing its country, it hasn't learned from its mistake since 1971. It has not learned from a single mistake.
We're going to have the minimum wage of $1,000 an
hour. Exactly. It's now, and you get to literally get to a point where you've gone from like having famines and wars and all that kind of stuff. So you look at America now, like what are they the most worried about? They're worried about pronouns, freaking how many transgender people are on the boards of companies. Like you're done. Like your time is done. Like once you're focusing on that stuff, it's over. Like what are China focusing on? Chinese companies are focused on the P&L.
And people on Mars.
Well, it's that's innovation.
What they're focused on. Yeah,
it's innovation. Like you said, people have become obsessed about us fighting in between themselves. You know, you're a Democrat, you're a Republican, rather than looking at how can we bring ourselves forward. We may have different political views. Like you said, kind of like deciding that you want to be some different pronoun today, rather than actually looking at how are we going to take the world forward and getting offended at people. So I think it's probably a nail on the head there, but it probably won't be that popular.
What I'd like to see is a chart of the countries that have mined Bitcoin and where they are, and to kind of see, okay, so who's the number one country that is pro Bitcoin, and then looking at Bitcoin as their kind of store of wealth and reserve currency.
I don't think it's public, a lot of that.
No, I don't. I don't think it is.
If I was going to put money on which country in the world has the most Bitcoin, it would be either China or Russia. They both seem to get it. They both seem to have, number one, they've sensed the threat. So they have done various bits of banning it and stuff. And they're also super corrupt, where they'll just grab miners and just take their Bitcoin. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have co-opted a lot of these miners and now they pretty much own them and have just go, you know what, we're going to ban it, but we're going to mine a load on our own as well. And Putin has also been speaking to Vitalik quite a few times. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's got a nice bag of Ethereum as well, Mr. Putin. So
I've got a chart by mining hash rate as of April 2020. China 65%. Wow. So obviously this isn't, you can't tell what's government and what's not. United States at 7.24. It's the next, and then Russia 6.9. Then Kazakhstan at 6.17. That's interesting. I'm guessing that there's cheap energy and maybe renewable sources there. And then Malaysia as well after that, then Iran. So actually that's a really good point. So I had a quick Google after we were just debating what happened to Persia. It's Iran, not Syria. So I just dropped that into the chat. So really interesting that China's so heavily, and I doubt it's really changed that much from the last year. Well, it will now, but
they lost 35% of that overnight because one of the provinces in China flooded, and then the whole mining operations got washed out. And then they've just had a load of miners switch off because they banned mining in there. So, but then a load of hash power just popped up, because the thing is like that those percentages do change a lot, because essentially the reason why those percentages are what they are is it only is worth putting your miners online if they're profitable. So the second China a load of miners go offline, they pop up all over the place, because now suddenly it's more competitive to mine a block on your energy that you're using. So suddenly miners that aren't profitable today, China disappears. My miner is now profitable. I shove it back online. So those percentages do change quite a bit, just purely depending on the political environment, and sometimes people just find access to some cheap energy, and a country just pops up from 0 to 10%. It's like, what the hell happened there? And there'd be some type of political leaning, or some cheap energy was going available, and a load of miners came online, and then just as quickly as it came online, it goes offline again, and it pops up somewhere else. So it's
Kazakhstan is an interesting country, but it's appeared so high up. But I'm guessing there's reasoning behind that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I see the fact that there's obviously the US is second on there, but that's not necessarily saying that that's going to the government.
No. Oh no, I think that's impossible to tell. I just it was just fishing one out which had it by country.
Yeah, but it's a great chart to see.
I think China, if you were talking about governments, I put money on it's China. I'd say Pakistan's up there. So they've got an interest in Bitcoin after initially talking about banning it. And then any other, what's the correct word for it? Like improving countries, what do we class India and Brazil as?
Yeah.
We talk about first and third world countries, developing nations. So the ones who are rapidly growing. I believe that countries like that would be quite interested.
Yeah. Again, go on, guys, go on.
I think the only one that I actually remember government-wise actually buying Bitcoin, I think it was Bulgaria. I think Bulgaria bought a load of Bitcoin once. And bizarrely, the country that could have been leading all this by a country mile was America, because they took down Silk Road and captured hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin from Silk Road. They captured the wallets, but they sold it. They sold them off in an auction when the price was around $800 or something. So the US government now don't have any of those Bitcoin.
I'm sure one of those officers must have snuck some off.
They did, but they got caught sneaking it off. 2 FBI agents got done taking, I think, 10,000 Bitcoin out of those wallets.
Didn't manage to get into CoinJar quick enough.
But the problem was there's the guy that they arrested, Ross Albright, for setting up Silk Road. The transactions happened after he had been arrested, so that's what suddenly when the investigation went a bit further, he was all convicted and done. The case was virtually closed. Someone was just sense checking it afterwards and went, hold on, how did a month after this guy was arrested in a prison cell in isolation, how did these 2 Bitcoin transactions go out? And there's only 2 FBI agents that had access to the wallet, and it's very easy, and they got convicted, and then they ended up going to prison for that as well. So they got caught.
They would have been corrupt, eh? Yeah.
Who knew, eh? Yeah.
Who knew?
Okay. Do you want to close on Mark's story? Even though he's not here.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
I'm interested. What's Mark's story?
Well, the 60% of crypto investors say it's having a negative impact on their relationship, study finds. So I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you do have to find a partner that is, I guess, not necessarily as heavily invested into Bitcoin as yourself, but maybe just has an appreciation of it. Because otherwise, you will have one that is very much pro Bitcoin and the other one that's just pro fiat and, just the normal standard. We've got some money, let's spend it, as opposed to invest in it or planning for the future, because that money is shitcoin, essentially. So, it's interesting.
What do you think, Ross? Is it affecting your relationship?
I think my wife worries about it with the dips. But as I've said to her, it's one thing which I understand. It's something which I've researched, and it's not just a 6-month plan. It's a 5-year plan. That's minimum as well. That's where I put the kind of line on my investments. Is anything which I go into now, is it going to be good within 5 years, or are you just buying it for speculation because it's popular in the papers at the moment, about or on social media? So it hasn't been discussed since the initial dip.
All I know is that you are the conservative person, the most conservative person that I know. So if you're not worried, I definitely don't need to be worried.
it kind of goes back to why we got into Bitcoin as well. I think that me buying it encouraged you and Mark.
Yeah, massively.
Because you go, oh shit, Ross is into it. There must be something about this.
You're the ultimate bull flag. You are. Like, once Ross finally gets over the freaking hurdle of investing in something, like, Jesus Christ, something big's happened here.
Yeah.
I just think, we've talked about the reason for the dips. If it was, I don't know, Saylor and JP Morgan and God knows what other investment vehicles were pulling out of it, that's when it probably set off the red flags. But
even that's bullshit, though. Surely it's people selling, like, because you got to dig into the reason why they could have sold it because for the environmental reasons. It's like, well, that was bollocks. Like, fundamentally, like, why do we own Bitcoin? It's because it's a scarce asset. It's secure. It's decentralized. All those things. Like, has one of those been compromised? If it has, then that would cause me to sell my Bitcoin. If
the bit which did worry me was the double transaction. I can't remember what the background to that one. The rumor
that one came out. Yeah.
That was the one which scared me a little bit because I went, oh God, and I was like watching it, but was it that the transaction hadn't completed?
I can't remember which one that was. I think
I heard it, but I didn't look into it because I kind of knew that. Well, the whole point of Bitcoin being created was to kind of thrash that whole theory out of the double spend theory. So if you think you've found a flaw in it 12 years later and, at that time, just under $1 trillion, good luck.
Yeah, because and if you have done it, then congratulations. Like, do a $1 billion transaction and spend it twice. Go on.
Yeah.
I dare you. Go on, do it. It's like,
I think it's just the belief.
Yeah, I just batted that one off.
Yeah, I think it's just have a belief in it. Look at it over 5 years. I just think if you're looking for quick gains over a month, you might as well buy lottery tickets.
That's what everybody is thinking, and everybody doesn't necessarily have that resolve to kind of think, oh, okay, right, well, I am going to put money into this thing that I've not probably even researched for 10 minutes, forget even 5, like an hour or so, or decided to listen to a podcast or pick up the Bitcoin Standard or gone into any of the various different web links that are out there that now offer, information on it, or downloaded an app called Bitcoin Lessons, presented by yours truly, hey?
The pod sponsored by Bitcoin Lessons.
Yeah, exactly. But people just think, oh, it's okay, it'll go up. Because no one ever actually thinks it can also go down. Again, it's just like human psychology. They've seen it go up and they're like, okay, I'm betting big on it and it's going to happen overnight. And it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. I think the important word in this headline, I think, personally, is the word crypto, because that's suddenly now, if like 60% of crypto investors, I would say it's nearly 100% of crypto investors, because crypto investors haven't got a clue what they're doing. They're trying to get rich quick. If they have done any research on their shitcoin, then it's going to be flawed, and they're just reading stuff written by bag holders of that coin. So, of course, when that starts to go down, undoubtedly they probably start questioning themselves, like, have I been scammed here? They start to get stressed. Their wives and partners undoubtedly will probably see that. And it undoubtedly causes friction, that they're losing money and they lose sleep. They might be trying to trade it. So it doesn't surprise me that losing money, like, money is the number one cause of arguments in relationships anyway. Most people struggle with money month to month. Bills are high. What you spend your money on is very much a big issue in many households. So yeah, if you're into crypto, then you're almost definitely going to get wrecked and lose money. Of course, that's going to cause arguments. I think when you talk to Bitcoin relationships, suddenly now you've got, well, if you're into Bitcoin, you have a fundamental belief in it. So I think when the price does dip, and as we've seen, like on here with you guys, you're relatively new into Bitcoin, when like to having like the type of net percentage of your wealth in Bitcoin as you have. Yet we've gone through, I think, 2 big dips now. I think we've only gone through like a 35% dip and then this 60% dip. And you're unshaken because you've got a solid foundation and a belief, which means you're not taking stress back in And even though your wives might be a bit stressed, you're instantly calming them down, and they see that and just pretty much go, "All right, it looks like he's got it. I'm panicking a little bit, but he gets it." Because you're Bitcoiners and you're well read. If you were aping into freaking Cardano and Polkadot and Ethereum and stuff, like you wouldn't have you would know in your heart of hearts, you would know, I freaking bet the farm on this and it's going wrong and shit.
I think this is another comment. Is it's day-to-day money as well. If you're betting grand money which you need for running your house on Polkadot or Dogecoin or whatever it is, then that's the issue. Like, this for me is investment money. Originally quite a lot of my stack came from money which I was going to spend on a car. Did I need the car? Not entirely. Did I want a car? Yeah, I did. But I took the choice to buy Bitcoin because I thought it'd be a better investment.
Yeah, you're right. And I think you're definitely right on that point. It's a really good point of the day-to-day money. A lot of the people that are, I'll say, investing loosely into Bitcoin or anything else, they actually don't have that spare cash at the time anyway, or they need that money. So
it's what the cash is being spent on as well.
Yeah, but that's why I think they're also very quick or very easily happy to then also sell at a loss or equally sell at a small gain in comparison to the bigger gain that they could make should they wait.
Yeah, or you could stop buying, I don't know, the newest iPhone, Xbox, whatever consumerism drives you to do, and actually invest in your future.
Debits. Yeah, check your direct debits and everything else that's going out as well.
Yeah, I must admit though, it does bring me back to a point. I think we discussed it either on the first or second one around leveraging debt to buy Bitcoin. And I think this point is obviously a bit of a throwaway point, but dips like this, I think this is the time when if you had leveraged yourself up with debt and at a price that now Bitcoin is 60% down, even though you're pretty confident it's going to recover probably before you need to pay that debt back, the amount of stress you would be under now, not only have you lost 60% of your net worth and your investment kind of cash, you would also be underwater on that loan going, holy shit, there's a payment coming here. So you're in debt at the moment. And it's just that adds on an element of stress. Even if you're still confident, you would still be a bit stressed. You're probably going to be a little bit more snappy around the house. Mood's going to be down. It's not healthy. And this is the thing, even though it probably is a smart investment decision, is it a smart life decision? Can you really hold through these big peaks and troughs? And I think, yeah, and unless you...
But this kind of goes to the point again, what you're talking about with leveraging with debt is a short-term answer. Yeah. So it's short-term gains. In that kind of situation, you should be looking at what can you do long-term? What can you put away which you won't miss? It'll vary from person to person. It could be someone who is struggling to get by and 100, 200 pounds is the maximum, or it could be someone who's got lots of money, but they're pissing up the wall. They're leasing a car every 2 years. They've got the newest iPhone. And if they did, stop spending a little on that, they could afford thousands. And I think it's just different circumstances, and people have got to look at their circumstances and be a little bit sensible, because it is a long-term plan. I think all investments should be long-term plans.
It's funny you say this actually, because again, on our bi-weekly call with the CEO, every week it happens where someone will say the words pay rise. And I actually think he does such a good job not to then turn around and probably say, well, I'm sure if you handled your money better, I wouldn't need to give you a pay rise.
Brutal.
Brutal, but true.
Quite interestingly, a book which you've recommended, Darnell, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yeah. I've been reading that, and it talks about that whole concept is, if you had more money, what would you do with it? Would you just piss it up the wall? And I was just like, such a good point. How can you get your money further? So it's looking at these investments which are 5 year, so I suppose it's a situation between, it's like we've all learnt different amounts, different specialisms, different jobs will pay more, and it's accepting what you've got and actually investing it in the right way and not wasting it.
Yeah. It's all about, and I'm sure, I'm preaching to the converted, but driving a wedge between your actual outgoings and then, creating that buffer of what you're actually paid. You don't need to you don't need to spend to get to zero, or the race to zero every month to then wait until the next month to play the game once again. And again, I think maybe it's an education thing, which of course it will never be an education thing unless you find the education yourself, because they don't want you to be rich. The government don't want you to be rich. They don't want to teach you how to handle your money. And in fact, they want you to do the complete opposite, which 80% of people do. So
we are in the age of consumerism, so it kind of gets into the point, but it's not entirely someone's fault when they're educated in the way which they are and exposed to materials which they are as well.
Yeah.
It's easy to fall in the trap. Like, we're saying all this, but there's a lot out there. Or you can have this brand shiny spanking new car which you thought you'd never be able to afford for £400 a month. What's £400?
Yeah. I find it really sad. I totally agree. I think there's a lot of people that have never even thought what their life is outside of consumerism and just buying the next shiny thing. And that's literally, every pay rise, we all know it as well. It's very common knowledge that it takes, something like, I think we actually had some guys come in, they actually presented on it. And I think they said a pay rise only is new money for 2 months. On average, it takes a human being 2 months to up their standard of living to whatever the pay rise was. They'll find new stuff to spend it on. They'll move house. They'll buy a more expensive car. They'll buy a season ticket. They'll suddenly start buying clothes. They'll go out for dinner more often. Like, we just literally natural as beings, we want to have the best standard of living we possibly can. So if there's an extra £500 a month coming in, we expand our life to absorb that money. And I think that goes for most people. But then what was really sad that I found when I was like, the higher up the business you get, people are fundamentally, they're financially free, and they get to a point where their wealth is now so large and their pay is so large and the shares they have is so vast. They can't expand their life to that extent now, and they are literally just stockpiling money. And what's really sad is like, why I used to ask them numerous times, like, why are you still here? Like, what are you doing? And it's just for purpose. They haven't actually thought yet again about what happens once you're financially free. Like, what is your life outside of a paycheck? And they haven't thought about it. And now they're so old, they're in their 50s and 60s. It's like, well, I might as well just carry on. It's like, well, you only started all this for money and to be successful, to like, set your family up and all that. That's all done. You can now stop coming into this office and go off and do whatever you want in the world, whatever you want. And the problem is, people don't know what that thing is. So they just keep showing up 9 to 5.
Do you think that's because it came too fast to them? And maybe they were just like so stuck in the race to get to where they thought, okay, I want to be financially free. And then they achieve that. And then all of a sudden it just kind of, it was just lost and forgotten.
I don't know. I think it's fundamentally like having a lack of imagination, because it's like to figure out what to do with your day when you don't have 5 days a week, 10 hours a day taken up. Like, if you get that back, you have to answer a lot of really tough questions there about what do you want to do, because you still need a purpose in life. So you need to find a new purpose and then go after that thing. And I think also there's a lot of fear, because when you've built yourself up and you've got a good reputation in the working world and you're now a director or a CEO or whatever it might be, it's taken you your entire lifetime to get to that point. And you almost don't want to give it up, because once you give it up, you can never have it back. Yeah. So you're just terrified of letting go. And in reality, the best thing you could do is just let it go.
Having hobbies, and it's if you do it at a certain age, it's things, because I've thought about this many times, is we pay other people to look after our kids so we can work. If you can afford not to work, why don't you raise your kids? I think it's the best thing which you could do.
Yeah.
But obviously people, will be a lot older once they've really made it. So it probably doesn't count, but maybe they'll catch the end of their kids' time at home.
Yeah. I mean, what's really sad actually is I also find is that the relationships with their family has broken down. So they go to work to escape. And if they quit their work, then they have to spend more time at home, which you would think is a good thing. But their wives or husbands hate them, and their kids also hate them. So just being back for birthdays and Christmases is about all they can do before their life turns into a freaking chaos and argument. So they actually come to work to avoid their real life, which is so tragic.
Funny enough, someone who used to work with lives nearby me, and I see him when I go and pick up my kids from school and nursery, and he's waiting for his daughters. And he makes that point every day when he's at home to walk his daughters home. And I'm like, that's a good balance. So I actually look at that, and I think some people lost that kind of grasp on reality. Whereas he's obviously gone, I need a better relationship with my family because that's what matters. Even though I want to be successful in business, obviously he wants his family to love him and not hate him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's quite successful as well. It's not like, it's a small job which he's got.
Do you think your idea of when you broke out of the corporate world and then got your time and freedom back is actually played out into reality of how you actually thought it would be before?
Largely, yeah. I think always you just got to ask yourself, like, do you regret it and stuff? And the only thing I regret is not having the money to stack more sats. So, but no, my life has been infinitely better now that I don't need, like, the things I worry about now are the things that matter. So I used to miss family holidays, their weekends away. I used to barely go on holiday myself and not spend as much time on relationships and not focus as much on Bitcoin. And they're the things that I cared about. Like the second I had a spare, they're the things I was doing. And now I go to, like, my family have all these little weekends away, freaking all the time. And I used to go to probably to 1 in 5 of them. And now I go to every one. And so just that one little thing is I have time to do that now. And I also, because I didn't want to use the holiday up, I used to want to go somewhere nicer that I want to go. They go on holiday with places I don't really care. So yeah, so I think this is the thing, like, and saying stuff like that, it's like, oh, but where's the yacht and where's all that stuff? Like, that's all the flashy stuff that's supposed to come with success. And like, I've done plenty of that. But when you really look back over the last 3 years, like what I've done is actually spending more time with family, spending more time on personal relationships. And that is what we should be doing. And I think that's what Bitcoin really emphasizes, as in we should be worrying about the 100 people or so that are close to us. Like building citadels and building small communities. We're being taught to like be in villages of 60 million people, and we need to care about all of them. And all that does really is mean we completely become individuals and subservient to whoever's sits talking on TV. We need to switch off the TV and start listening to our loved ones that are around us and building good networks of people that you would kind of live and die for. And because that's what life's about. That's what gives life meaning, not some politician up on a stage that we know talking bullshit. But
that's very, very, very deep, but leaves us with a final point. When are we going to meet up for food? So Bitcoin's dead again.
Fellow plebs, if you want to hear us, then yeah, tune in.